I'm sorry, Andrew Weissman, but if I recall correctly, in 2018, you were one of the people who helped write the Mueller report, and you all botched the hell out of that.
And never in my wildest dreams would I have thought we would be here. I thought we were better as a country.
Oh, yeah.
Like all these sites that have been around for creating videos and all that, like text stock videos, they're done.
But that's why Canva was one of the first to get into doing AI.
What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner, given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And since 2020, our team that does that show for dads, fathers, and male caregivers has reached out directly and indirectly to over 400,000 dads, fathers, and male caregivers. So as always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, and magnet for miracles and a solution for someone's problem. We are broadcasting live with Primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lala on July 27th. Lala is not here with us today. She is celebrating her 31st wedding anniversary. So if you're listening on the podcast or the audio broadcast, I put the 3 and the 1, so 31 years. So she is taking today off, and we told her she can't come on tonight. So she does come on tonight. We're going to boot her out of the green room. But as always, we have Aisha K. Staggers and special friend of Primetime Saturday and Dr. Vibe, Dr. Tachi is with us. Good day, ladies. How we doing?
Oh, fantastical.
Okay. Aisha, you're on mute. Get yourself off mute.
Yes, it's been a good week. It's been like a year and a week.
Only? Okay. Well, before we go any further, a few things. Primetime Saturday, the Patreon account where you catch a lot of great conversations. There's a link. There's the store where new merchandise. I think new merchandise is coming after last week's conversation. Lala's working on some stuff. The Primetime Saturday Discord group where you keep the conversation going on in between. Epic Conversations. Subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. We want to get to 1,600 subscribers, not 15,000. You'll know about that in just a moment. And to advertise your business product or service on the Dr. Vibe Show, please feel free to email me at dr.vibe@thedrbeshow.com. And since Dr. Tachi is here, we always got to big up Indie Soup TV, which is now, 5 months old yet?
Actually, yes, because we the 25th of March is when we started broadcasting. So I think it's 4 months exactly.
Okay. How many YouTube subscribers now?
16.4? 16.3?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
2,300, I think. Yeah.
Let's get to our first conversation topic because it's all politics stuff. The Obamas finally endorse Vice President Harris. Who wants to start?
Aisha, go ahead.
I will. I had to rethink this because people were like, well, why didn't they endorse right out the gate? I had to really sit and take a step back and look at the strategic nature of it. And while I think that they probably could have come out sooner, the thought pattern on their part is probably, look at all the stuff that we went through. We don't want her to have to take on our stuff on top of what she's already going to get. And so that was one way. But also, too, notice that they did it at the very end of the week. Okay? The week started with Joe Biden endorsing her. It ended with the Obamas endorsing her. So here you have the last two leaders of the Democratic Party endorsing her on bookends. And the Obamas are actually the most popular, and Michelle's not even a politician, but they're the most popular politicians in American history, in recent history. Mm-hmm. And so that is a lot of power and influence that they wield. And so the timing, it has to be about the timing. And so I think to bookend with Joe Biden at the start and the Obamas at the end to close out that banger of a week she had, not to mention all the fundraising in between, I think it was strategic. And I actually can appreciate the thought that went into how that was going to roll out.
100% agree. That was pure strategy on their part. It's also consideration, on their part. You see someone else who was in the same predicament that you were in, and you're trying to spare them as much as you can the wahala, I'll say, that they went through. They were really trying to spare them that. But, I want to also point out this whole thing. If we look at the title of this article, and they're not the only ones who have done this, the finally. Now, it's very interesting because there's no other, and granted, they are the most popular politicians. They're very high profile. It was expected that this was going to happen. And I think people were waiting for it to happen. But the finally, to me, is like, did you say finally about any of the other Dems or any of the other expected people when they got to it? What is with the finally? And I think that puts scrutiny on the entire thing. And see, this is why we as journalists, I need us to be more cautious with our wording of things. So yes, finally, I guess is fitting, but it's also a loaded finally, in my opinion.
I think when it comes from us, we're like, finally, they did this, and now we see why. The media, way mainstream media is doing this, it's like there's still a reluctancy on their part to give this woman credit for anything because they're still worried that there's a possibility that Donald Trump will win. Okay, and they're afraid of that. Because one of the things that I've seen is people now that, okay, you ran Joe Biden down to the point that he drops out. He drops out. Kamala Harris, energy. You can't believe all this is happening. And now by Wednesday, they're talking about, but this enthusiasm might not last. Come on.
Well, this is why you've been hearing calls to, number one, pass only along positive things. Obviously, the things that we need to be concerned about when it comes to the opponents, those are the things, yes, obviously share. But the overwhelming negative, the misinformation, the directive is stop sharing that type of stuff. Don't even give it the energy like many mainstream media outlets are doing. Number two, I think that there's this assumption that the general public does not know these things. We know good and well what's out there and what's being said, and there's no need for you. It's not news. When you continually repeat these things, it is not news, especially if we already knew. Obviously, if it bleeds, it leads. There is money attached to all of this as well. Ratings are attached to all of this as well. So
clicks and likes.
Yeah. Exactly. So I just want us, and I have to include myself and you in this. We are journalists. I want us to be more responsible when it comes to these types of things. And for those of us that are responsible media, we already know what the mainstream media is going to do because they're beholden to advertisers and they need that money. So they're going to go with the most sensationalized thing they can. For those of us who have platforms that can look at things critically, let's do that and not fall into the trap of the negative.
Yeah, we have to be very deliberate and intentional with our words. And one of the things that I see in terms of even this Obama conversation, I'm still trying to figure out who the source is that said they talked to the Obamas and the Obamas wanted Joe Biden out. Because if you have to be quiet about it, I seriously doubt that those two are telling you anything. Trust me, these are Black people here, okay? These aren't your regular run-of-the-mill politicians. These are also Black people.
Correct.
Okay? So we know to keep home stuff at home.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not running out to the first Tom, Dick, and Harry who can then run to the media and share what they're not going to say in public. Michelle Obama is not that kind of woman. If she's going to say it, she's going to say it, period. So I think that there are a lot of people who are talking. Oh, I'm an insider. Guess what? 9 times out of 10, when someone says they're an insider, they're like, what, 6 degrees of separation from that person?
Exactly. They want to be an insider to make themselves more relevant. That's what it boils down to.
They're about as relevant as Nate Silver is right now.
Exactly. I see. The thing is, this is the interesting thing. And in all, a lot of media outlets and all their fervor to try and understand things and try and understand, for example, the Black vote, try and understand the way that people of color and people of African descent are feeling. You don't know how we operate. So as soon as I heard that, I said, no, good and well. They didn't say anything to anybody. That's not how we operate. There are still cultural mores in terms of how we operate in the public sphere, particularly when it's a public sphere that is negative and is not necessarily wanting to see us win.
And that we don't
operate
control.
Very differently.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've made a point to say regularly on my Twitter is that when you are a member of a historically oppressed group, you know so much more about the oppressor than they know about you, because for you, it's a matter of survival. Mm-hmm. For them, it's choice. And oftentimes they don't think that they have to pay that much attention to you, but they're arrogant enough to think that they know everything about you.
Absolutely. I mean, case in point, who was the bright individual who called it a colored sorority? Now, I understand that.
Oh, Brian Kilmeade?
Uh-huh.
We all heard it. I understand that he is trying to be condescending with this. I get it. But it also points to the fact of how little they know about Black life. They think for us, as a member of a D9 sorority, our affiliation with our sisterhoods and brotherhoods do not end after we graduate from college. It is a lifetime commitment. And some don't even start until after college, because we've got alumni chapters.
Exactly. Case in point, I didn't pledge go through membership intake until I had graduated, right? So it cuts across different times that people get in, but it also permeates your life, your everyday life. You are there to serve. That is what you are there first and foremost for, to uplift the community. Secondly, for sisterhood and brotherhood. So it really constitutes a large part of your life. That's not for the other organizations. That's just something that they do during college. And that doesn't mean there are no Black people in those sororities. There are some, but our relationships go deeper when it comes to that. And so when you're looking at, they don't get it when they look at Vice President Harris, that this is something that is it's not just a question of the White House being pink and green the day that it goes beyond that. It shows a service-minded public servant. You have to be service-minded before you ever enter these organizations. So it just shows that she is dedicated to a lifetime commitment of public service. And that's something they don't get. So that comment they made, you were trying to be condescending, but to your point, it also shows how little they know about Black life or the lives of people of African descent. And we have to know everything about them. Yeah.
You know what? I just want to, because I ain't gonna get many words in tonight, so I just want to get in. No, this is a good thing, because family, you are watching and listening to HBCU grads, also 2 respected journalists. I just want, and then also.
And 2 former professors.
2 former professors. So,
and I'm still a professor.
There you go. High level, good, deep conversation. Galen Bingham says Black folks have a sensitive issue about needing to be perfect. No candidate is perfect. We have to choose what's been best for most. Excuse me. There is no one who works for all. Kamala is the best hope for most of America. He also goes, yo, and he says,
Kappa
Kappa.
Psi.
Hey,
Say till the day I die.
My
Crimson and
daughter's
Cream
father is a
family.
member of Kappa Alpha Psi.
Yes,
Okay.
love the Cap. I'm a Delta,
You know,
so Crimson and Cream family.
but you know what though? My daughter's grandmother didn't pledge Delta till she was almost 50.
Yes.
So, and see the point, and that's the whole thing about that comment that he made, was that he tried to, he knows he said color, because here's the thing, your whole point to complain was about it being the summertime. So why would you say college? That's being redundant, because your assumption that it's already college affiliated was already present when you said, why is she doing this in the summertime? Because clearly you were saying that schools are out, so who does this? She couldn't get out of it, so who does this? Again, not understanding that
Don't get it.
these boulets happen every year, first of all. Second of all, if you look at Zeta Phi Beta and their membership in the pictures and all of that, I'm gonna tell you, you had a whole bunch of elderly women in their wheelchairs, their motorized wheelchairs, in a long line going to see Kamala Harris. So I was like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what? As many friends as I have in these D9 organizations, I know for a fact that you have more people who haven't seen college in 20 years at these annual meetings than you do people who are still in college.
To your point, the majority of people that are active and doing the work on, of course, collegiates, we love collegiates. That's where most of our organization started. But the majority of our members are alumni and alumni members. Most of the people, because we're the ones that have the money to do the
money
work
to
and the
continue
service,
doing
right?
work.
So the undergraduates don't have that type of money. So obviously we support them and we want them to make great changes and strides on their campus, as well as personal development. But most people that's like trying to impart critical thinking skills to two smashed flies. I have no hope for them to ever learn, because they don't have the fortitude or the capacity to do so. So whatever, lost cause.
And I just have one last question and comment on that. When is the black guy that sits there going to get fed up enough to walk out? Even though he doubled down on it for Brian Kilmeade, I'm sure that somebody told him, corporate told him that he had to do that. But if you look at his face, he heard it, and that he bit his bottom lip, and he had that look on his face like, if I didn't need the money and I didn't need this job, I whoop your behind right now.
All right. I just want to add on to Galen Bingham says, my daughter is a rising biochemistry major at Spelman College.
Fantastic. Love Spelman.
And he says, my wife and mother-in-law are dedicated, AKAs. My wife and I
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
My wife and I pledged alumni chapter. So I want to bring it back. How critical are the Obamas to the campaign of Ms. Harris?
They're closers. That's what they do. That is their role in the Democratic Party now. They're closers. When it comes to difficult races, they go in and they bring it in the clutch. It's like I love the WNBA. It's like a women's basketball game, right? You're gonna run it down the court, but whoever's in the paint is the one you want to finish the shot. Period. And that's who they are. They're in the paint, just waiting for someone to hand them the ball. They're going to make the shot, finish it, complete it, game over.
With the Obamas endorsing Harris, will it bring some people that were sort of iffy on Biden over to the Harris camp?
No. And the reason I say that is because the energy isn't with them. The energy is with her right now. Correct. And they're not going to, I think that that's also the reason why I think that they waited, was that they needed to let her have her moment without them being over it. And I think that they're going to play a more supportive role, because they know what it's like to be in that space as Black people and what comes at them. And I think that they're going to be more of a supportive role, not there to bring in, because right now, honestly, she's bringing in the money. She's bringing in the people. She's got the momentum and the energy behind her that they're like the cherry on top of the sundae, but she is the sundae. She's the ice cream, the main component. And you got to remember too that most millennials, especially the younger ones, and Gen Z were babies when the Obamas, little kids when when that campaign was going. So they don't have the firsthand memory that those of us who were, of age at the time do, and the excitement about that.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I remember that, and I was very actively involved. And, my grandparents even raised money for the Obamas. And I can say this, the energy that at that time was exciting. This is different. This feels different. And I can't put my finger on what the difference is, but I think as a Black woman, for me, it feels different. I was excited to have the first Black president, but I can tell you this, in 2004, when I saw him give that speech at the DNC, and then he was surrounded by Michelle and the kids were little, I said, he's going to be the first Black president because I liked his wife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is really about having a familial structure that is supportive of that. And you could see that right away. I 100% agree. I think, to add to this, that the Obamas realize that this is not about them. And this thing is big. It's bigger than everybody, but it's definitely bigger than them. And so it's like when you have a child go off to college, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know that you will be there for them, but you're not going to go and take their exams and do all of those types of things. But you're there in the wings waiting in case they need your help. You're there cheering them on, right? Yeah. You're there, at graduation. So I kind of liken it to that.
And they just want the rights to produce the documentary that will eventually
listen. You better have me in on that, sis.
All right. Let's and Galen, I know you got another point. I think it'll be relevant what we chat about now. But next conversation, various groups mobilized in spirit of Black women for Kamala Harris and raised millions. Like it was crazy the numbers I was hearing. Like 44,000 people.
Yeah. I'm actually going to join the Win with Women call tomorrow.
Yeah, there's another call tomorrow.
There's another call tomorrow, like they do every Sunday, but someone had sent me the link, so I need to register for it. But the way that this happened, they said that they were only expecting 1,000.
Right.
And so they didn't have the capacity. Actually, they said they were expecting 1,000, got 44 on the call, and another 70 waiting in the wings.
And so I actually tried to get on the call when it was 1,000. They were expecting 1,000, like you said, and it was tied to, I can't remember her name, but the main individual that was putting it together. It was her personal Zoom. So I tried to get in and I couldn't. And then I tried again and they were like, this meeting was at such and such. So I was like, all right. So then somebody found the link and sent it to me. So I ended up getting in on that other one. But that is just a testament to how ready people are for the rubbish to end.
Yes.
And the interesting thing is, okay, I'll say this. I won't go too far, but I'll say this. Number one, I love how all these different groups are mobilizing, and it's not a question of who did it first, but we have to look at that because usually when these types of things happen, usually who's the one who starts off the initiative? Black women, because it is assumed that, Black women are strong, they can do it, and yes, we are. But this is always what happens. We always have to be the one to say, all right, who's going to start? We always have to do that. And so what I want for us to do is once she becomes President Harris, not that you slack off on what you're doing, but it's time to let other people to step up and do something for a change. Not that not that nobody is doing nothing, but we do an inordinate amount of work when it comes to these movements and making change, and we never get to rest. I'm saying, sis, I bid you your rest. We need to rest and then sometimes people don't step up. because we do it anyway.
Right. And I think that's the conversation. Now, mind you, this one that Shannon Watts organized that had over 100,000 white women was not the first one. There's actually another one Monday of
Yes.
white women. A young white woman posted on TikTok the results of it. And she said the very first thing that they acknowledged was Black women sent us.
Mm-hmm.
Black women sent us, and we have to do the work. And then Shannon Watts, when she did hers, the thing that I appreciate the most is that they didn't spend a half hour sitting and talking about how, how great they are for being allies. They spent a half hour dragging themselves for allowing Trump to happen in the first place.
Well,
they spent a half hour doing that. And I thought that was something, they didn't need anybody else in their room. They needed to do that themselves. And I'm glad that they had that space to sit and reckon with themselves and hold themselves accountable. The woman who runs the Women's Vote, the Black Women's Organization, she said that Shannon Watts called her and asked her how they did it in terms of the logistics, and did she have some advice in terms of how to handle the Zoom aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, do you want to be on this call? And she said, no, you all need to have your own space to talk and to deal with your own issues. And there's going to be a call August 1st of the disability community. The LGBTQ community had theirs Thursday night, I believe it was. The South Asians had theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, Black men, and then white dudes are having theirs on Monday.
Yes.
White dudes for Kamala Harris.
Yes.
Which is one that I hope that, like white women, the first thing they do is have that reckoning with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Just because now that they're in this space, they've got to realize that you all are the last seat at the table. Remember that. The rest of us are here. So
Galen Bingham has a comment and question. Key to the POTUS race seems to be the white female vote. Historically, white women have voted against their self-interest and voted with white males in their family. Do you see that changing in this election?
Yes. And the reason I say that is if Roe hadn't been overturned and they weren't having issues with their own health, their own reproductive health and challenges, whether it be not being able to have a DNC, which is the same procedure that they use for an abortion, not being able to have a DNC after a miscarriage, or sometimes even with fibroids, sometimes they do suck those fibroids out using a DNC, or IVF, which a lot of them, have, if it wasn't impacting the other parts of their lives. And now Project 2025 is talking about taking away the right to birth control pills and IUDs and all those forms. Then I would say, I don't see it changing, but this I do, because now this reproductive issue doesn't just affect Black women, doesn't just affect Latino women, doesn't just affect Islamic women or women of different faiths, different colors, whatever. It affects them.
Dr. Tachi, I know you wanted to share something. Go ahead.
Yeah, in terms of this, I think Aisha's right, because for the first time, their worries and fears are coupled with the nonsense that has always been going on. And they are seeing that where there's one ism, there are usually other isms. They maybe saw it before and swept it under the rug, or said, oh, well, that's them. Oh, that's poor women. I'm not poor. And so now they actually see, no, which we're talking to you too, that they're talking to them as well. And it's unfortunate that, a lack of empathy has come, because it really is a lack of empathy, where you don't think this could be you or this could happen to you. I'm sorry. Usually where there is one ism, if they're racist, they're also sexist, they're also ableist, there are other isms there too, usually. So now the veil is being lifted from people's eyes.
Right. And the other thing that doesn't help is that you've got two white men on the other side sitting there talking about women having babies, basically being barefoot and pregnant. And when white women see that, it'd be different if it was two black men having that conversation. They don't see themselves as being the women that they're talking about. But when they see two white men having that conversation, they know that they are the women that they're talking about.
Exactly.
And also, too, the negative talk about childless cat ladies and all that.
Yes, yes.
They're the stereotypes that they're attributing to Kamala Harris on the sexist level. They have some racialized ones, obviously. But then the ones that aren't racialized, they're like really, really touching the heart of, because, I don't know a whole lot of, unmarried cat ladies that are typically black women. But the stereotype of that is a white woman.
Well, we'll get to some of that trope stuff later on in the conversation. I did hear an interesting commentary. Who was the guy? I can't remember, but they said when Hillary Clinton went against 45, she lost. White woman, experienced politician. He said, can Kamala do this? She's a black woman, doesn't have as much experience politically as Hillary Clinton did. What's the difference between Kamala's run and Hillary Clinton's run?
Let's be very clear. Kamala actually had more experience than Hillary Clinton.
She has more.
And the reason I say that is because Hillary only held one office. And that was for 2 terms, not even 2 terms. It was for a term and a half that she was a U.S. Senator for New York.
Right.
That was it. Before that, she was a political wife. Okay. She's a political wife. She didn't hold any position in government. But the other thing about Hillary Clinton that's different than Kamala is that Hillary Clinton also came to it with 30 years of baggage. People hated Hillary from the time that she said she's not going to stay at home baking cookies. And that comment followed her into 2016. Remember, the Congress didn't like Hillary Clinton because she did try and go in there and do the healthcare thing. And they're like, who are you? You're just the first lady. You're not a member of the administration or the cabinet. You're not an elected politician. Who are you in here trying to do all of this? And so she came with that. Kamala doesn't come with that. Kamala, this is her fourth office she's holding. Fifth she's running for. She was the DA in San Francisco. Then she was the Attorney General. Then she was a U.S. Senator. Now she's Vice President. Now she's running for president. So she's held these positions going back to 2004.
Exactly.
So she's got 20 years of experience, of practical experience in government as a politician that Hillary Clinton didn't have. All that time, she was the wife to Bill Clinton. Now, did she help run his campaigns? Sure, she did. But she burned a lot of bridges that Kamala hasn't yet.
Exactly. I mean, I remember watching Hillary when at the time I was full-time faculty, and it goes to show like the differences in terms of what the way we think about things. And I'm also communication. So I definitely look at communication. And there was this arrogance that I noticed that Hillary Clinton had when she was there. And I remember the non-melanated women at the university was, oh, she was great last night, wasn't she? And in my head, I was like, frankly, I think she was arrogant and there wasn't any need for it. But who am I? What do I know? So it's also that in terms of, like you said, from the baking cookies thing and alienating that whole segment down to now there's this arrogance that doesn't mean that you should not be proud or be forthright or be, I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But there's a difference between a non-humility, non-humble arrogance and knowing being strong. And so it came off to me, and I'm only speaking for myself, as this arrogance and lack of humility. And I do believe that in order to run something, you need humility because you need others.
Well, let's be very clear too. I think that the other part of it that we can't ignore is that she was like, "Well, it's my turn now."
Yeah,
That was what she went in it with. It's my turn now. She let the polls tell her that she was so far ahead of him that she didn't need to campaign in those battleground states.
yes.
And then also beyond that, I always wondered what Barack Obama had to promise her to bow out and to accept the Secretary of State position. And I realize now it was that he would endorse her as president when his term was over, because there was no reason for him to not endorse Joe Biden after spending 8 years with him. The only reason that could have been was the deal that he made 8 years prior. Because remember, after she bowed out and he had elected Joe Biden and not her, for some reason, the Democratic Party told him he had to have a meeting with her and Bill Clinton to discuss offering her a position in the administration. So clearly, something was there. And I think that's the reason why. Because honestly, as much as you could revere the Clintons, Barack Obama had to know that she came with 30 years of baggage.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
So Galen says now
Well,
we don't.
of course he knew, because he attacked her on it in the debates.
Right. So Galen says now we don't have to speculate about a 45 presidency. Still a long way to go.
You know what though, Dr. Vibe, that's the one thing I will say, having been here and voted in 2008 and now, at first I felt that way about Barack Obama, but then I got to a point where I started to see a similar kind of mobilization, and I was like, yeah, actually he can win this. I actually, and Lala and I, when we talked about that, I actually do believe that she will win. And the reason I say that isn't just because of the momentum and everything behind her. Like I said, when Nikki Haley's supporters endorsed her, you gotta remember, those are Republican women, okay? That's a pocket of voters. And remember, Donald Trump, Joe Biden was winning his primaries in the 90 percentiles. Donald Trump was winning somewhere between 70 and 80%. Nikki Haley was taking anywhere between 25 to almost 40% of the votes from him. So those voters now endorsing Kamala Harris makes all the difference. About this time, well, last Sunday, around this time, I was kind of, I don't know if this can work. I'm kind of scared. Are people going to get behind her? But when I saw that, and then I saw that they transferred all their PAC money to her, and then Nikki Haley, mind you, she did not put a cease and desist out when they became Haley voters for Biden. She did put a cease and desist out when they became Haley voters for Harris. And that's when, if Nikki Haley's scared, then I know this is going to, now see, that's a seasoned politician. If Nikki Haley's scared, then I know this is more than a possibility.
I think we also have to remember that despite whatever we saw with Dems these past 2 weeks, the GOP is very fractured because there is an old guard of the Republican Party, and then there is this extremist MAGA people, the extremist terrorists. That's what I'll call them, because that's what they are. They are extreme. And that is not, regardless of what we're starting to see this fracturing of, they're usually party above Republic, but they see that the Republic is crumbling. So now the old guard needs to do something. This is why you see so many Republicans now going for Harris, because the alternative is scary. This is not the Republican Party that they signed up for, basically.
And also, too, you're going to see a lot of people who, like Mike Pence, might not vote for Harris, but he's not going to vote the top of the ticket.
Mm-mm.
He'll vote down ballot races, but I think a lot of those establishment Republicans, the old guard, are going to leave that top ticket blank. And not voting is a vote for Harris. Not
Exactly.
voting for Donald Trump is a vote for Kamala Harris, even if you don't vote for him.
All
and you were
right.
gonna vote for him. Yeah.
Let's move on to one more comment before we go for a break. Kamala Harris is a cultural movement.
Yeah. And I think that's what we're talking about with the momentum. Not just that, but Charlie XCX is, her fans are like using the term brat and they're like Kamala's brat. I still have yet to figure out what that is in my Gen X self. But Beyonce giving her the song, the Swifties were on that call with white women. Okay, so pop culture, she's becoming a pop culture moment. You got Jennifer Aniston talking about JD Vance and the and what Republicans are doing with reproductive rights. As someone who her reproductive excursion was covered by tabloids for 20 years. And you've got her endorsing. The one thing I do have to say that is not happening the way I would like it, but Black people are doing it in some spaces, is George Clooney, Rob Reiner, and Michael Moore need to be dragged to especially George Clooney, because he really was the one who got this thing up and moving with getting Biden out. And Kamala Harris was not his first choice. Somebody told him, you can't skip over her. Black women are going to have something to say. You don't want that smoke.
Go ahead.
I think so. It's a paradox. When you are a celebrity, you have a platform, especially a well-known one. You have a platform to make commentary and to make change. But if you are not well informed, that platform can turn into a nightmare. And so it's a catch-22. And I know that a lot of celebrities are feeling this, like, absolutely, you're a citizen still, regardless if you're a celebrity, and you still have the right to speak out. But because your platform is so large, people have a tendency to not only believe in what you say, but do as you do. And so you have a power that you have to wield very carefully. And so when George Clooney came out saying those types of things and basically pressuring him to step down, was that his place to do that?
No. He's got one vote just like everybody else.
One vote like everybody else. We all may say, for example, oh, this person needs to step down or this person doesn't need to step down, but it's taken with a grain of salt because of who we are. When you have a platform that big, you have to be very careful, and you don't have the political know-how to understand what that means. This is not your wheelhouse. This is not your wheelhouse. And one thing that I'm not saying that people cannot speak up about things, but one thing I know is I know enough about politics, but I am not a political strategist. So you will not find me on CNN or any place else talking about strategy because I know my lane. This is not George Clooney's lane. He needs not speak up so loudly about it. And then everybody's covering. Media is guilty as well. Why are you covering? Why is that news?
Because he's a celebrity, and like you said before, it gets likes and views and all that other stuff. And here's the other thing too: there's also a certain level of arrogance on George Clooney's part to think that he could change an entire political platform.
Exactly. How very dare you?
How dare you? But not only that, the fact that you had, and it wasn't just Black women. You had 15 million people who voted in the primaries say we're not going to be disenfranchised this way. You're basically MAGA-ing us in our own party. Not going to have it, not having it. And so he had to kind of back down. If he would have leapfrogged over her, and if the Democratic Party would have, honestly, I think we would lose. That is the way. That was the way to give Trump the election. Right. But right now, I think the reason that I believe Kamala will win is because she was the people's choice. The people could not go back and do the primaries again, but they could speak out in other ways. And one of the other ways that they started speaking out was pulling their small donations from the down ballot races. And when those people saw that the rich people weren't coming to pay to give them money, and then their small donors were like not donating to you until you endorse her. That is when they started one by one by one by one. But also too, going back to what you're saying, Dr. Vibe, can't you win? The fact that the southern states, okay, gave her their delegates first, also is a shift, because you got to remember, in these southern states is where you have large populations of Black and brown people.
Absolutely.
The most concentrations of Black and brown people
Mississippi,
in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And that right there tells you that these are going to be the voters that are going to sway this election. Forget what people are talking about these so-called swing voters, these independents. Like I said on Wednesday, nobody's independent right now. There are no independent voters. People already know how they're going to vote, you know, for this election and who they're voting for. The swing part was whether or not they were going to show up to the polls. The undecided part was whether or not they were going to stay home or get up and vote. And now you have a Democratic base that, instead of having the choice of staying home, which many were considering, they're more motivated than ever to just get out and not only vote, but do the work. People are doing letter writing campaigns. They're doing postcard campaigns. They're like, oh, I can't wait to go knock on doors. They're the spirit of actually doing the ground level grassroots work is back among Democrats. And Joe Biden has not had that this whole campaign season. That's one thing he hasn't had. And that was the thing that made a difference for Barack Obama, having that ground game, having the grassroots activism, having actual people go out and talk to other people about it. And now that that's there, the possibility is very real.
Can I say one other thing, or are we going to break?
No, go ahead. We're actually going to delay a break because Galen has a question. So say what you have to say and then a question, then we'll go to break.
Yeah. So looking at this as a cultural moment and things too, and to what you were saying, Dr. Vibe, yes, I believe she will win. And here's the thing. I'm likening this, I live in Florida, and we had that 2 or 3 years ago when we had the collapse of the Surfside collapse, the condo building that collapsed here. And that's because and for those of you that don't know about Florida, even though Florida, a lot of construction is newer, but a lot of these condos east by the beach are old, like in excess of 40 years. And you're supposed to have a 40-year inspection. But what happens is these condo associations, they find something wrong and they're not doing assessments, or they can't get it. And so they put it off. That's what happened. So let's look at that as a metaphor for what the Republican Party is. They are an old 40-year plus building that needs an assessment to keep from crumbling, and it's not happening. But what happened is, on our side, we're the shiny new building that is hurricane proof, that meets all the criteria to be hurricane proof. We've got a new gym. We've got a great swimming pool. We've got an amazing condo association that does things. We pay into the whatever it is, the escrow, so that we have the extra money to do whatever. And what is that escrow that I'm talking about? All of this, I'm likening it to the fact that something happened. Definitely the voters, but we also have the power of social media. As soon as something happens, the social team needs a raise. They're on it with all these things. They're using all these the things that are out now that we see that are current, not just pop culture, but in terms of what's happening, embracing AI and all of these things. They're doing what needs to be done so they don't become that crumbling 40-year-old building. So that's what I wanted to say.
And they're also using things. They're talking in simpler terms. They're not as academic. They're not as old school Democrat establishment. When Donald Trump said that thing on Fox News, they went and issued a press release that says 78-year-old man said something, and it was like, oh my God, they're like literally being very petty that people wanted them to be in a way. But also too, the other thing is that that she's got a possibility when Georgia did two things this week that signaled they knew the tide was turning. The first thing was they announced that they will not allow state money to go to fund AP African American history classes.
Correct.
They reversed that the day after. Why? Because Georgia realizes, oh my God, this momentum is building. We're in play again. And if we don't do this, Georgia's staying blue.
Got it.
Sorry to tell you they're staying blue anyway. Go ahead.
Before we go to break, Galen has a question. I've been wondering about the Paul Ryans of the world. What do you believe has happened to the old school moderate Republicans compared to the MAGA Republicans?
It's cowardice. To be honest, it's cowardice. They are afraid of these people. They are totally afraid of these people. And they're even more fearful now that somebody tried to shoot at, and I'm not going to say he was shot because like Chris Ray said, there is some question as to whether or not he was shot or it was shrapnel, but one of their own shot at them. So if one of their own can shoot at him, there's no question in their minds that they'll take out a John Boehner, a Paul Ryan, any of those folks, right? Not only that, but you gotta remember, Paul Ryan is sitting there getting all the money. He doesn't care. That's the other part. That's the other thing that happened to a lot of those old school moderate Republicans. They don't care because they're out there trying to get the dollar. They don't care. They're not as active in the party anymore because they don't care. They care about the money. That's it. The money for them has always been power, and politics has always been a means to that money.
Exactly. It's a conduit to the money, and that's it. Because it's arguable if they ever cared. I don't think they ever cared. Politics for them was a way to get exposure and access to money. That's basically what it was. And to be honest, many of them already had money before politics. It was just the exposure and the power. Okay, right. So it wasn't anything. It wasn't.
Tell me why somebody's going to make Lauren Boebert, a 3 times failed GED, high school dropout, is going to be somebody's CEO when she decides politics is enough. Explain that to me and tell me how she's not a DEI hire.
Exactly. And so it's really the failure of the old school, the old guard Republicans for only caring about money and not caring about the party. This is what happens when you turn your back. Then you have the basket of deplorables, to put it in no uncertain terms, that sneak in because your back was turned and you didn't care. And so then you turn around and you're wondering, where did all these people come from? You had your back turned and you didn't care, and they snuck in. And you're 100% right. And rightfully so, they should be afraid. Their own will turn on them. Have you seen January 6th? That's them. That's their own.
Saying? A shark will eat its own guts?
Yes. They are terrified of, like you said, it's cowardice. They are terrified of that type of thing because they didn't have control of the party to begin with. They didn't rein it in to begin with. And honestly, that's the hate that hate created. You think you can get lovingness, and lovingness is not a word, but I'm making it one. You think you get lovingness and kindness from when you spew hate? Hate begets hate. We've all learned this biblically. We know this. So of course, this is what you have. And of course, they're going to come after you because there's no loyalty but to anyone but the self. And you fostered that. That's your problem.
And the other part of it too is that people are like, Donald Trump could have stopped January 6th. I don't think he could have. Once he got those people riled up, I don't think that he could have stopped it because that was beyond a full-scale riot. That was like in what you see in some of these other countries, okay? that you don't usually see in America, but you see them in other countries that are struggling with their government. And I don't even think the other countries have seen things like that. These people were so angry, they were scaling one of the tallest buildings in DC.
Yeah, but
Okay?
see, but and the fact that that happened is crazy. But that's what happens when you have, and I'm just going to say it, when you have a David Koresh like leader in front of you, and your cult members will do anything. They will scale walls for you. You have formed a cult. So this was not just a regular
with a militia
uprising.
mentality.
Militia mentality. I call it a coup attempt because it was a coup attempt.
Mhm.
So with this coup attempt, you have a bunch of cult members that are so riled up that they are willing to do anything for their David Koresh, Jim Jones-ish type leader. And at that point, I don't think, this is the thing, I don't think he has the scruples to realize the level of culthood that he has begotten. I don't think he does.
No, and I don't think, and you know what? I don't think being shot at even scared him a little.
I won't go there, but
all right.
look, we don't really think that it wasn't staged, but because I'm sorry, you point and bullets fly anyway. That to me looks like a sign, but I mean, you would think that anyone else it would scare, but guess what? It didn't scare him. You know what? You know why it didn't surprise me? It didn't scare him? Because Steve Scalise is still being the same old, ugly, hateful, mean-spirited man after nearly being killed from being shot. And he still can't come off of his behind to support gun background checks. Somebody shot you. So, yeah, I don't think that these people can be changed or fixed or anything.
No.
We just need to cleanse the palate of the earth with their presence.
All right. Galen Bingham says the Frankenstein that 45 created.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments before we go to break, ladies?
I'm loving this. I don't usually talk about politics, so when I do get the chance to, I'm all in. So thank you.
You're welcome.